Welcome to another week of the Longbox Paradox. I'm Dan, and we're going to get started this week with what I thought was a standout issue of The Flash. Issue 64 by Josh Williamson was a great follow-up to his issue of Batman that was last week, continuing the four-part story of The Price. This issue started out with showing Gotham Girl, and she's talking to this mangled body of her brother, I guess you could say. And it gives a little bit of what's going on with her. She basically is nuts. And from there, we jump to The Flash and Batman, where they're doing their detective work, which, for me, this was the parts of the button that worked perfectly for me, where Batman and Flash, both detectives, forensics experts, where they started, taking the evidence, building it. They're both still trying to build back their trust in each other because of what's going on with Wally's death in Heroes in Crisis. The Flash in this is having issues with, letting Wally down. There's a couple of flashbacks of, talking about him making his costume. They end up on a tropical island or Pacific island from the evidence they gathered, and in there's this castle, and they go to explore it. Batman and Flash have kind of a back and forth about Gotham Girl, what went on with her, how'd she get her powers, or what he was told she got her powers, and how Batman was kind of careless investigating her story and following up on her. And then Flash starts asking if she was at Sanctuary. And then she pops up, and there's all these bodies in these cases and this version of Venom. And it picks up on kind of a it drops on a cliffhanger. I really don't want to spoil anything. I can't say enough about what Williamson has done, and as a lapsed Batman reader due to Tom King and his wanting to deconstruct everything. It was nice seeing the detective science work. Batman he's unsure, but he's also not going to let on that he's unsure. Flash, I'll flat out say, since the Jeff Johns run, Williamson's run has been the best since. I don't want to denigrate anybody else who worked on it, but this has been a long run, and it's been a constantly interesting run. This is a buy for me. Even if you're not a normal Flash reader and you're a Batman reader, it's totally worth a pickup. And if you're trade waiting, wait for this story to come out as a trade. But I would recommend buying it now, because I have a feeling something's going to get revealed at the end that's going to be not earth-shattering, but I think it's going to lead to something bigger down the line. This is the most interesting stuff that's come out of Heroes in Crisis, and that's sad to say. There's also a nice, interesting line in here where the Flash asks how things are with Selina, and Batman's just like, you don't know? So from there, move on to, I'll just keep with DC here, and we have The Batman Who Laughs #3. A lot of this is more build-up. Batman and Jim Gordon are trying to get James Jr. to come with them to help them. So it's weird because Snyder is able to use the pre-52, the new 52. He picks and chooses what's canon, and I guess he gets to kind of have his own Snyderverse of what is and isn't. So it's nice that James Jr. now is the James Jr. that we were left with from the end of Black Mirror, that story. He's been on drugs that kind of stop his homicidal tendencies, the not villainous, but the criminal mind of his, where it kind of dulls him, and he's, very acknowledged of, I have this on my ankle, I can only do this. Sometimes if they deliver food to the wrong spot at my house, I can't go far enough, or I'm afraid to go far enough to get the food, so I don't eat that day. And Batman comes in and he's like, I need you to go to your old ways. You're the only person. You're a genius. Even the Joker respected you. And it goes on for a bit. Again, if you're deep in the Snyder verse of Batman, there's little callbacks here and there that it's kind of nice that they go back. And I do like that he just said fuck it to whatever canon had been and just takes what he wants. Grim Knight shows up and saying that he wants Gordon. They assume that it's James Jr., but it's actually Jim. There's this weird meta moment of Bruce and Bruce talking to each other about, you know, what's going on and how he turned Gotham. He cleaned up Gotham and there was no Joker, there was no this. And Batman's like, I'm one of the top 10 shooters. And Grim Knight's like, well, I'm the best. It was fine. Again, I keep waiting for where this is going to go. There is a Penguin moment with the Batman Who Laughs where he kind of outmatches Malone at the Penguin's club. And Batman, now after Jim Gordon got taken, he's kind of in his head like, I failed, I lost. Alfred comes back and Batman is putting on the Batman Who Laughs head eye thing with the spikes. Odd ending. I keep waiting for where this is going to go. I have a feeling the next 2 issues are really, it's going to pick up full speed. They fleshed out Grim Knight a little bit more. If you're not already into this, it might be worth trade waiting. I'm already invested, and I'll be damned if the B cover for this by Riccardo Federici was not a thing of beauty. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed that cover. It was definitely the one to pick up if you were going to pick it up. It's a read. It's a read. It just depends on when you want to read it. I know some people do just like to trade wait. It's worth paying, especially if you're this far into the Snyderverse and having to go through Dark Knight Metal to get here, which Dark Knight Metal was fine. There was some missteps, I thought, along the way. Like at the end, it was just felt like a mess. But I bought the whole thing. I read the whole thing. So moving on from there, we have The Magic Order by Image Comics. This wrapped up nicely. Oliver Coipel, if that's how it's pronounced. His art is fantastic. I first really started liking his art with the House of M. And Millar, his writing, this wasn't as bombastic. It's actually like how I imagine like an adult Harry Potter book would be with, no kids. Coipel's art really carries it at times. If you haven't read it yet, the trade's probably going to be following right behind it. It's worth picking up, and I feel like this is one of those trades that's going to stay in stores and sell rather well. It gets bloody as all hell. This one in particular, there's just people being cut in half magically. They reveal how the one character, Gabriel, a lot of what's going on in the book was about what happened to his daughter and her friends, where it became kind of an analogy for gun safety, but he left his wand not locked up. She picked up his wand and messed with it and ended up killing herself and her friend. So there's interesting ways the story, and then Cordelia, who her specialty is escapology, she kind of is like Zatanna if she was kind of a bad girl. Interesting character, like even in the womb she managed to carry out an abortion escape where she magicked herself into another person's womb. Yeah, I believe that was issue 2 or 3. It is definitely something like really weird. This series started slow for me, where I was involved with the writing at first, and Coipel's art didn't really get going for me till the second issue, where it felt like the storytelling of his art really caught up to Millar's writing. And yeah, there's not much more I can say because I really don't want to give away a lot. Also, if you end up liking this and buy the trade, or just end up picking up the individual issues, then I would recommend picking up Jupiter's Legacy and then the second series that followed. I want to say it was optioned. I can't remember if it was Netflix or what it was. But it was a fascinating story of, you know, heroes and then their kids being like kind of decadent Paris Hilton, Kardashian types, and how it came crashing down around them. Yeah, definitely pick that up. And gonna stay with Image, and this is gonna be hard for me to talk about because it was kind of jarring. Tuesday nights, just for starting reference, there is a guy, Lord Retail. His name's Jermaine. He runs the Acme Comics, and I want to say Greensboro, North Carolina. Every Tuesday night, he starts doing Twitter rundowns of books he's reading. So I use that as a resource. If there's something maybe it's not on my radar, he sometimes will talk about, you know, Twitter limitations, about 120 characters, talking about books. I was planning on picking up anyway, but The Hit Girl in Hollywood #1 by Kevin Smith, he had read, and he kind of said he wasn't ready for it, and the story kind of was a little jarring for him. And kind of made me real curious. So as soon as this morning hit, I picked it up and I started reading it, or what you consider reading. And my reaction was somewhat the same. So to start off, the book has no words. It is a silent issue, and the art tells the story. For me, I read comics as an escape, and there was a weird reality of it that just hit me in a wrong way, and I didn't think was appropriate to get the story from point A to B. In the story, it starts out with a high school, you see some kids, there's a library, and, you know, the usual jerk-off teens, you know, female librarian kind of rips into them, or what you'd assume she was, and they start, as soon as she turns her back, they're making blowjob mouth gestures, and these kids walk in and start gunning people down. That right there, it's a silent issue, and then the art is kind of this very loose, cartoony style, where I think it actually, had it been like a more realistic art style, wouldn't have bothered me, but the fact that it was like a fun art style kind of made it even weirder for me. And again, there's enough stuff with the school shootings. I really don't need it in the comics too, especially when it's being used as this really odd way to get Hit Girl in there to behead these kids, and then find a thing saying that they're looking for the real Hit Girl, and they're making a movie. And it gets into that weird Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back thing where they're like, oh shit, let's go to Hollywood and kill these fuckers. So they show Mindy getting on the plane, and she is on the Hollywood sign at the end, and I just, it really weirded me out. It just, I wasn't really, it's not the kind of book I was looking for. And, you know, not saying that Kevin Smith, all his books are whimsy, because, I mean, he did have Karen Page killed by Bullseye in one of his books. And, well, one of the Batman books, I'm still waiting for Bellicosity to see what happened with that, but I don't know if I have another 10 years in me for that. Yeah, like, I just don't think the school shooting was necessary to get to that point, to that kind of end to the book. Like, just odd. And again, the art threw me. And also, it was weird for Kevin Smith to kind of touch that subject, because Shortly after the Aurora, Colorado theater shooting for Dark Knight Rises, I mean, he did a podcast discussing The Dark Knight Rises where, I mean, he did a moment of silence and was crying talking about the movie in the podcast. It just struck me as odd. Out of curiosity, maybe you want to pick it up. It's a hard pass for me to recommend to anybody. I can't do it. I'm maybe issue 2 will be better and maybe tell a story that I want to see, but this just was not for me, not one bit. And I'm well, now that I've brought it down, we're gonna go to another downer, at least for me. Captain Marvel #2 from Marvel Comics. This, I wanted to give another try after issue 1. Didn't really hit me in a good place, but I thought it was building to something maybe, because it was a build-up issue. And this just left me flat. The art, I did not find any better. The story just wasn't for me. Other people might enjoy this. This is just, for me, it was a pass. I've gotten to that point where I'm willing to just cut bait quick and say this book just isn't for me, and this is one of them. But I will say, if this book isn't for you, the movie photo covers they've been doing for 1 and 2, I believe eventually when Brie Larson starts doing the convention circuit, will be rather good items to go get signed and do the yellow label CGC. I don't think they'll be high price or anything, but just nice to kind of pick up and sock away if that's something that you might want to do in the future. I wish I could say something great about this book, but I neither want to shit on it nor push it at this point. It might get better at a certain point. The art, just for me, because there's books that I might not like the writing, but the art will kind of keep me in, and this just couldn't do it for me. So I can't with this book. So some covers that I did pick up this week. The Gary Frank cover for Detective Comics 998 was fantastic. Adam Hughes cover for Avengers No Road Home #1. I was not able to get this. The price might drop on it in a little bit. I have no idea at this point, though. And then we have the, as I mentioned earlier, the Riccardo Federici Batman Who Laughs. There was also a cover that I really liked. I didn't pick up, but I thought it was a interesting cover, was for Captain Marvel #2, the Chris Bachalo cover. There was just something to it that kind of, in the simplicity, made me like it. It was a ratio cover, and I want to say it was like 1 in 50 or something like that. Yeah, it was nice. It just wasn't something I could pick up at the time. And Wonder Woman 64 has an Art Germ variant, and if you did not like the weird landscape covers that they did last week, you might not like this. But DC has a lot wrong at times, but man, their B variants just, they continue to knock it out of the park. I love it. And before I go, I want to make a recommendation on a book that I feel people should pick up and read again. It's been years since it came out originally, but Warren Ellis and John Cassidy put out a book. It was originally on Wildstorm, and then Wildstorm was picked up by DC. But Planetary, pick up the whole collection. It is a fantastic read. If you can do all of it in one shot, it is one of my favorite series that was probably last 20 years. Especially this weird book that at times like will homage other things. Like they kind of took the piss out of the Vertigo universe in one issue. first issue or second issue, they went to Monster Island and all the kaiju. It's a great series, and if you could pick it up, it's definitely well worth your money. So with that, I'm going to leave you, and another Thursday is in the books. Thank you, and I hope you join me again. Good night.